The day of high school graduation, I looked down at my fingers and counted 1, 2, 3. 6 years, Itzah. It's been 6 years, and now you're about to receive your diploma. No doubt your parents are really proud of you. I looked around at the people in their seats, wishing my parents would be here with me in this special moment. The knot in my throat felt like the one 6 years ago, on the day my parents got deported. When I was 6 years old, there was a letter in the mail with my dad's name on it, assigning him a date for court. My dad automatically knew it was immigration. Ni madres, es la migra, no voy a ir, me van a deportar. In other words, hell no, it's immigration, I'm not going, they'll deport me. We laughed when he said that, but we then realized there was really nothing funny to that, and just shut up. At the moment, my siblings and I were small, my older brother being 10 and the little one around 2. He decided not to go. Turned out to be a good decision, but on the other side, not really. Immigration started going after us ever since, as if they had killed someone, when all they really did was work their asses off to give us, their children, everything we wanted. A couple days later, immigration showed up, and we were all home except my dad. He was working in Point Loma, painting yachts. It was around noon. My mom was cooking. Me and my brothers were most likely watching TV. I remember hearing this loud English voice, which was rare in my house. Usually all our visitors always came in speaking Spanish. I thought they could be cops if anything. We heard Mom talking, but she didn't even know what she was saying. To me, it sounded like she was speaking in Chinese. She then called my older brother to the kitchen with her. I could hear the man speaking in English and my brother telling my mom some stuff in Spanish. I was a curious-ass little nosy girl. I grabbed my little brother and took him to the kitchen with me, and we stood next to my older brother. Right away, my mom gave me that look, to not say anything. I knew what that meant. I started to get a bad vibe, and there they were. They were tall and white, real big with their charcoal black vests, and the big white words on it that said, ICE. They started questioning my mom, asking for my dad, thinking we were hiding him or something. For a moment, I wanted my dad to be there. He made me feel safer, especially when they were there. But then again, I knew who they were, and they'd take my dad. Growing up Mexican meant migras were always a topic, talking about how fulano de tal lo sacó la migra, because he was out late or going home from work. Stories about when they crossed the border. My little brother started crying, and he would grab on harder onto me. I assumed he was scared or could just feel my vibe. The officer then asked my mom to show him proof of our legal residence in the U.S. She could only provide proof for me and my little brother, since my older brother was born in Acapulco and brought here illegally when he was months old. They kept asking questions. By then, I was blanked out. I couldn't remember what they were saying. I just wanted them to leave before my dad got home, since he was only working for a few hours that day. Thank God they left, but before leaving, they jotted my mom's and brother's name down. Once again, a couple weeks later, another letter in the mail, assigning court not only for my dad this time, but for my mom and brother as well. My dad thought it was too risky to stay there. ICE could come back anytime soon. We ended up moving to Euclid Avenue from City Heights. I left all my childhood friends. I moved schools too. I had to get used to new kids, but making new friends for me has always been no big deal. Immigration was the only big deal. They called us one time to our new number in our new home, asking for my dad. My dad thought it was weird, since my mom and him had been using a fake name. So we moved houses again. I switched schools, friends, and neighborhoods. Time passed. I was 12. My brothers were 15 and 8. The night before our family was going to be broken apart, we were having a great family time. We were playing loteria, cracking jokes, and planned on going to Soak City the next day. I was looking forward to it. We fell asleep late after a good night. Everyone slept in their rooms except me, since I fell asleep on the couch. I was too big to be carried to my room, not like when I was younger and would fake asleep just so my dad could take me to my bed. That very next morning, I heard some very loud knocks, as if someone was trying to get into our house. I was half asleep, didn't even manage to open the door. Kind of felt like I was dreaming. The sun was barely coming out, but I could read the clock, 6:03 a.m. These early loud knocks were unexpected. My aunt's room was right next to the living room, so she heard and got up. I heard the loud English voice that I heard when I was small. My heart sunk all the way into my stomach. I knew who they were. She opened the wooden door to see who was outside through the screen door. There were 5 officers wearing a vest that said ICE. Like me, she said once she saw them, her heart sunk, and she felt her body go cold. She knew who they were, and they were coming to mess with us again. The officer held a paper with pictures of my parents and asked her if she knew who they were. She said she did, but hadn't seen them in a long time. He then asked her for her ID. When she was going to go get it, she took me off the couch saying, "Métete a tu cuarto y no salgas." My heart was beating fast. Felt like sooner or later it would just pop out of my chest. I sat on my bed watching my brother sleep. I could hear my aunt's quick footsteps rushing towards my parents' room. I leaned on the wall and heard my aunt telling them, "Levántense, la migra está afuera y los están buscando." I wanted to cry. I knew by then what was going on. Later, I found out my parents had escaped through their bathroom window, running through the back houses into the alley as if they were criminals. They ended up at my aunt's house. A couple hours later, my siblings and I went over there. Most of our family members were there. They knew what had happened. While all my cousins were outside playing, I was being nosy in the living room with the adults just listening as my parents were telling them what had happened, and everybody else just giving suggestions. After a while, I got kicked out. I guess I wasn't allowed to hear whatever they were talking about. One day, my parents decided they were over it, tired of running away and moving houses. We all sat around in my aunt's living room. It was a typical weekday afternoon. My parents started saying, "Nos vamos a salir voluntariamente." I thought, get out of where? What do you mean voluntarily? They went more in depth. Then I figured what they were talking about. They were going to ask for a voluntary deportation. I felt a pain in my chest as if someone stabbed me. Are my parents leaving us and never coming back for good? Do we have to go live in Mexico with them? What about school? A couple nights later, my dad said, "Se pueden quedar para que estudien y irnos a visitar en las vacaciones, o se pueden ir con nosotros." I wanted to stay here. I didn't want to live in Mexico. I wanted to at least get my high school diploma. But then, I wanted to live with my parents. I knew I would need them, especially at that stage. I was going from a girl to a woman. Many changes were going to happen through me. We had a couple of days to think about it. We didn't have to answer that same night. I didn't speak at all that night. I didn't know what to do or say. I felt a lump in my throat and remember going to the bathroom right after they said that. It was like my eyes were clouds, full of water, ready to storm down on earth. As soon as I locked the bathroom door, big teardrops rolled down my face. Maybe they saw me cry that night, they wouldn't have had left, or maybe stayed longer. But then again, I wanted to respect their decision, because who asks to get deported voluntarily nowadays? So many people in Mexico are struggling to come over here, and they were asking to get deported? Made me think they were really tired of it. It was the hardest decision of my life. I cried the following nights as well. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, live in San Diego or in Mexico with my parents. My parents really wanted us to stay and finish school. They knew Mexico had nothing good for us. I needed them in all types of ways, especially their love. I didn't have the same closeness with my aunt as I did with my mom and dad. I wouldn't be able to cuddle in between my aunt and her husband like I did between my parents almost every night before we slept. No more fun weekends, grabbing dinner Saturday nights, and breakfast Sunday mornings, and then getting spoiled at the mall afterwards. They left the first day of school. I still remember when my dad was dropping us off in our bus stop for our last time. My mom didn't want to come. I understood. I knew it would hurt her to say a last goodbye to us. Right before we got off, he told us, "Sigan adelante y no se den por vencidos," meaning go on and never give up, as he gave us a kiss and $20. It took me months to spend those $20. I loved those $20. I felt like I had my dad in my little Hello Kitty wallet. I had the biggest knot in my throat. I wanted to cry so bad. I felt like I had swallowed one of my brother's marbles. I only held it in because my friends were at the bus stop, and if they'd see me cry, they would ask what was wrong. I really didn't want to talk about it, nor receive friendly hugs, because it made me want to cry more, like nonstop. The whole day in school, I was quiet, wondering if my parents were already on their flight to Acapulco, or if they were put in jail for at least 2 hours or a day. Or maybe they changed their minds and stayed. On the way home from school, I was hoping to get off the bus and see my dad's blue Silverado truck waiting for us to go home. Unfortunately, he wasn't there. I walked home with my brother and felt like throwing up, even though I hadn't ate all day. I had no strength on my legs to walk up that big steep hill on Island Avenue onto 27th Street. My arms felt all loose like a spaghetti. I knew that day was the last time I'd see my parents, until who knows when. When my parents would call us every couple of days, I would go in our laundry room. I felt like that was my only private place since I shared rooms with my little brother. Trying to keep a conversation without my voice cracking was tough. Or when they called to say happy birthday at 6 in the morning before I left to school was the worst feeling ever. I can't even explain what it felt like. Until this day, it brings tears to my eyes. I caught myself crying almost every day in the shower for a very long time. I didn't want anyone to see me cry, but because they'd ask just like my friends would have that day. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I just wanted to cry on my own without anyone questioning or bothering, until the soap got in my eye excuse stopped working. My aunt noticed my eyes were very red one night after the shower and asked me, "Estabas llorando?" I just went straight to my room. I guess she talked about it with her husband. I had to tell them why I was crying. Extraño a mi mamá y a mi papá. It was obvious I was crying because I missed my parents. When I was 15, my parents decided to live in Tijuana so we could go out to TJ on the weekends and during breaks to visit them. They could have moved closer before, but never knew how bad it was affecting me until then. Ever since, it has been easier to handle. It's just the feeling of coming home to your family every day that I miss the most now. And it has been this way for a long time. My parents weren't able to come to my high school graduation. They kept calling me asking, "Have you gotten your cap and gown? And if you go out, be careful." It was cloudy. Graduation was crowded. I was nervous. Later, I went to see my parents in TJ. I showed them the photo I took when everyone was taking pictures with their families. My mom stared at the picture. She smiled, but her eyes looked sad. Holding the picture in her hands, she said, "Everybody's there except for me and your dad."
That was Itzahana Torres.